Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, as I join the debate on the motion, be it resolved that Parliament authorizes the Minister for Finance to borrow an amount not exceeding the equivalent of US $7,945,000 from the Caribbean Development Bank's ordinary capital resources to finance the Millennium Highway and West Coast reconstruction project. So, Mr. Speaker, as I enter upon the debate, I want to note with great interest the contributions of members opposite, particularly the member for Grosile, who was rather conspicuous by his absence in the chamber at this juncture, Mr. Speaker. I wish he was there to, of course, be part and parcel of this debate as we respond. He dismissed the concerns expressed by members on this side and described the posture assumed as treasonous, simply because members of the opposition are accentuating the fact that COVID-19 and its impact must not be taken lightly, and that people are suffering in this country, and the full impact of COVID-19 is yet to be felt by this country, and of course, the most vulnerable in this country. Mr. Speaker, and in attacking members on this side, the usual target is the former Prime Minister, who has played a pivotal role in assisting this country in responding to COVID-19. And I will get to that momentarily. I remember, Mr. Speaker, the last time I had the unsurpassed glory of addressing this Honorable House, I made it clear that the former Prime Minister and the member for Beaufort South, in his central program for the social sector, addressed income, human capital, and asset poverty. It is in this intersection between access to services, income, and assets that the issue of overall poverty trends since 1997 should be examined. Because, Mr. Speaker, the former Prime Minister understands quite clearly that what makes development happen is our ability to imagine, to theorize, to invent, and to do 100 things with our minds. And all the concrete structures we see around are mere symbols of development. But true and real development comes from the people of the country. And Mr. Speaker, any serious government that wants to build economic resilience in a country, COVID or no COVID, would address themselves very seriously to a health sector that protects people from diseases that debilitate and kill, an education system that equips people with intellectual tools, nurtures inquisitiveness, etc., through a system that attempts to match skills with the right jobs in the economy. And of course, giving policies and opportunity to reach maturity and to work for the people of the country. Many times you hear people talk about Singapore, the same size with St. Lucia, and how Singapore has done great things. It is because there has been no break in the agenda. There has been a sustained effort at social and economic development. And people are always at the heart of development, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, whilst members opposite consistently attack members on this side, the record speaks for itself. We made it clear that when the member for Beaufort South left office in 2006, the report card was that the economy had grown by more than 5%, and the year before was 4.6%. Unemployment was in the vicinity of 13.6%, lowest in 15 years, and wealth was more evenly distributed in the country. Indigence had been reduced significantly. Significantly, Mr. Speaker. And in this COVID-19 environment, and I remember the last time I said that most areas in the South and most areas where the most vulnerable people live in St. Lucia had no running water, no electricity. And at least today, because of the efforts of the former Prime Minister, the people in those vulnerable areas now have pipe-borne water that they can now adhere to one of the fundamental health protocols of washing their hands over running water. Very simple, Mr. Speaker. We never knew COVID was going to approach in this country. It is just that we prepared. We placed emphasis on education, including the laptop programs, that had this government not interfered with at this juncture in time, we would not have been confronted with the challenge of laptops, because we have to move education online, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, thousands of people have lost their jobs and are in free fall as we speak. And then the member for Grosile says that they are doing so well, COVID or no COVID, that unemployment had declined by 9%. But what the member failed to say was that as a result of the hurricane in the other islands, thousands of St. Lucians are overseas working. Obviously, they are not looking for work in St. Lucia. And it is just automatic. But it is nothing that they have done to stimulate anything in this country to say, well, there is unemployment. And I think that type of debate in the context of our development, in the context of what is happening there, is almost, Mr. Speaker, irrelevant, because we must be concerned about the people of this country in this COVID environment, Mr. Speaker. The member for Grosile also indicated that when this government borrows, it borrows for investment purposes. In what way the borrowings for DSH constitute an investment, Mr. Speaker? To the extent that tens of millions of our dollars have been invested in DSH, a dead horse. And we are spending tens of millions of St. Lucia's dollars on keeping the dead horse on a ventilator of make-believe to give the impression that this dead horse is alive, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, how can the member criticize us for insisting that people should be first, not horses? And I state categorically at this juncture, with all the boasting that's going on the opposite side, if an administration is putting horses above people, then they cannot even effectively represent the people in their respective constituencies. Not even the Creole horses. Not even the Creole horses that they can effectively represent. Far less people. And we are saying to you that people are suffering. And in whatever we do at this particular point in time, we must pay attention to the people that are suffering. So, Mr. Speaker, if last week when we came here, the entire $70-something million was set aside, for example, to deal with the challenges of the country, and we come here today to borrow for infrastructural reasons, we can see a holistic effort at trying to take care of the people of this country and to stimulate economic activity at the same time. But because of the type of spending over the past 4 years on things that have no value, millions to Permandu, millions to Lockerbie, millions in all types of direction. So COVID came and met a very vulnerable fiscal situation. So COVID-19 now bungs up with COVID-20. And that is what a local radio personality would call a kalmaja. So, Mr. Speaker, in the absence of an ambitious response to the socio-economic impact of COVID-19, people all across the communities and constituencies of this country are being impacted negatively. In the absence of strong policy responses, the COVID-19 crisis could deepen disparities between communities, even in the St. Lucia. So better resource communities are going to do much better than the poor communities. And you see, Mr. Speaker, we might end up with a situation where we have a few rich people and the majority of people are poor, because the middle class, if they are in free fall, will disappear. And you know, Mr. Speaker, they take it lightly. Members opposite take everything lightly, that the warnings are of no consequence. We are about to open up the country. We are about to borrow for infrastructure to give people jobs to do. Those people who had their barber shops and had to close it because of COVID-19, are they going to be employed in those projects? The people with the hairdressing salon, are they going to be included in this? The people on the block, all of those people, are they going to be catered for in that works on the Millennium Highway? But you know what, Mr. Speaker? When I saw the borrowing for this highway, I thought it was another highway. Because more than a year ago, they had yellow hats like clowns clowning around the place, you know, saying that no more roller coaster. Yes, it was big excitement. And that works would commence immediately. Yes, and the impression they gave had nothing to do with designs. That there would be traffic management and everything in the country. So, Mr. Speaker, the point is, the people of this country require assistance. And they require that assistance urgently, or else by the end of 2020, thousands of families who existed above the poverty line will be below the poverty line. Mr. Speaker, look at my constituency of Labrie. Airbnb plays a pivotal role in the livelihood of the constituency, people there. We have close to 60 rooms in the People's Republic of Labrie. We have not had a single guest from mid-March. And this subsector does not know when things will recommence in the area. No support in place to deal with them, because they actually incur significant costs of trying to organize those rooms to be self-employed. And Mr. Speaker, where's the Minister for Finance, a member from Miku South, last time was talking about gouvernement. And the Prime Minister must learn our language, because language is a very important part of our culture. It's not gouvernement, that people depend on gouvernement. We don't depend on gouvernement. We built our credit union, and in this dark hour in our national life, the credit union pumped in the vicinity of $1.3 million in patronage refund to give the constituency a boost. We engage in meals. The credit union took the initiative because we built it. The key to our economic salvation: provide meals to assist the efforts of government. To assist the efforts of government. No constituency should just believe that everything is government. And I can speak on behalf of my constituents that we are not leeches. The leeches are those who come to a poor country and want the country to spend over $3 million doing baptême cheval for them. Spend millions of dollars diverting roads. A leech will come here, like those who go in our NIC funds and take millions of dollars for some Cabot Link project.
Mr. Speaker.
These are the leeches.
Understanding a point of order. Mr. Speaker, I have
Honourable
allowed the member from Labrie to say that in previous sessions of the House, where he has used the word leech to describe investors in this country. I would like him to desist and desist from making those statements. He may not appreciate the investment that's being made, but to use derogatory language to describe them, Mr. Speaker, of persons who have come to this country, invested their money, created jobs in this country, and are helping to promote this country every day. Mr. Speaker, I have a strong objection to him doing that.
Hey, y'all come. I'm not doing that. That's not the point of order.
Honourable member.
Mr. Speaker.
No, let me just say something. I would say that investment is a very crucial part of our economic development. And I would ask you to be very careful how you refer to persons that partake or assist us in our economic development.
Mr. Speaker, two things. One, the member from Miku South will not instruct me in this House as to what I can say or what I cannot say. I am quite conversant with the procedures of this House, and I will take no directive from the member from Miku South. And secondly, anyone who comes here, we have to take millions of dollars to divert road for. This is a small and vulnerable economy. I have every right to express in the most profound way my displeasure and my dissatisfaction with what is happening. When the Majomel Road is in a deplorable condition, it needs to be repaired. $13 million is being spent for Tioa King to divert a road. And I must come here and I will not call Tioa King a leech.
Speaker,
Honourable,
point of
Man,
order.
sit down.
that was about honourable member.
I'm not going to yield. You have no point of order. Yes.
You do not
interrupt my presentations like
You
this.
can interrupt under the standing order, but you do not speak, especially if you're speaking into the mic.
The what?
You do not use such language to ordinary members.
Which one? I don't know which one you're talking about.
You want me to repeat it?
What did I say?
You do not say, man, sit down.
Oh, but they were calling us boy and all kind of things.
No. Let's be careful, honorable members. Let's be careful. I will say to you again, I do not believe you have the right, and I've said before, you have the right. Any member in here has the right to freedom of expression as provided by our Constitution and our standing orders. You have that right here to speak to issues and to various things affecting us. But let's be careful how we say it. And although when you refer to the government, I see the government has been technically separate from individual members that make up the government.
I don't remember.
Yes. Government more as a collective, which includes more than just the members in here, that part, the 11 members in here. So sometimes you say government, I allow it to go by. And if you speak directly to about a particular member, I will pull you up. So I allow that difference. But let's not see, and I think you can do better than that, that we, or the government, whatever way you said it, spend $14 million for Tioa King, when the members on the government side have said previously and many times that the road was spent, or the money was spent, in part I would say, for the airport development. You may differ, but it has been said. So do not make a blank statement like this that the money was spent for that. I'm not telling you don't say what you have to say, but I'm just saying, do not just make a blank statement that it was just spent for that, for him. Continue and be careful, sir.
Mr. Speaker, I will not sustain any back and forth with you. You know my style. This is your chamber and you preside. But you see, Mr. Speaker, I spend a great deal of time making myself quite conversant with the standing orders of the House and how to behave. Now, I have seen the member from Miku South do and say things in this House, including that he's not going to withdraw when you ask him to withdraw. Yeah. But I'm not going there, Mr. Speaker, but I will say something very clearly, Mr. Speaker. You see that era where people from abroad comes into our country, the neoliberal market model where people believe we don't want trade unions, we don't want taxation, we always demanding things. You see this St. Lucia Labour Party born out of the trade union movement. Any investor that will be coming into this country must respect the laws of this country, including the labor laws. We have to protect the workers of this country. And I do not believe that our resources should be utilized for the benefit of foreigners and at the expense of the people of this country. For too long, over the past 4 years, the people of St. Lucia does not matter. It is just an emphasis on horses. And even Jesus Christ got upset when he went to the temple, when they were gambling in the temple of the Lord. And I was made in his own image and likeness. And leaders must always show emotion and passion, Mr. Speaker. And this is why the people of Labrie sent me there to represent their interest, and I will represent it with everything that I have. And I will not be intimidated by any member on the opposite side. But certainly, Mr. Speaker, I know from time to time you are allergic to some words. I want you, the member for Labrie wants you to write on a little piece of paper for me all the words you're allergic to, Mr. Speaker, so I could avoid using any language. Because you see, when you're allergic to things and you start sneezing in this COVID-19 environment, next thing they start saying you have flu. So I don't want that to happen to us. So if you write on a little piece of paper for me, like the Calypso say, I will be so guided, Mr. Speaker. So there's no back and forth. But you are in charge of this chamber. You, the captain. You, the pilot in command. And I will obey, even though I'm a big man at my home. But I'm not going to take instructions from anyone opposite.
Continue on the...
in terms of what I should say and what I should not say. There are no turbulence. There are no turbulence. There are no turbulence. And of course, Mr. Speaker, as I prepare to close, Mr. Speaker, I will insist, Mr. Speaker, like my colleagues, that attention be paid to the vulnerable people in this country. That is where I want to see our money spent, within the fiscal framework and otherwise. Let us create an improved framework for people to be able to survive. It's like we're not in COVID-19, it's just business as usual. So we have no more, we have negative, the last batch tested negative, all our people have actually recovered, and so we're about to open the borders and we're taking off as if nothing happened. COVID-19, the full impact, we have not felt it, Mr. Speaker. And the government, despite what they say about election, clearly, these are election projects. To build up yourself and to do whatever you want. They can do their projects, Mr. Speaker. But we want them to take care of the people. And I leave that question for them to ponder. Of what use is $1 million in a rich man's pocket in the desert where he needs a bottle of water? He wants to buy a bottle of water. And the millions that they think they can spend, of what use is going to be to buy votes in the desert of political discontent in this country? So, Mr. Speaker, I'm advising the government to take care of the people of this country. Currently, fuel prices are artificially high, and this fuel tax is being used as a tax system in itself, placing further burdens on the people of this country. Mr. Speaker, I rest.
Honorable Prime Minister.